Hey guys, how's it going? You might know that I've been suffering with depression since I'm 10 years old, 11 years old, 35 now, and it's been going on all throughout my life. It's flaring up big time during winter season and pretty much stemming from my childhood. I've been in therapy for almost 3 months, going there every 2 weeks, but I have discontinued therapy. I'm gonna elaborate on why that is and how it came to be in a future video. But for now, let's just say I might be better off just doing what I doing for the last 10 plus years, which is trying to therapy myself with the help of YouTube videos, for example, such as this one. We are about to watch a clip called 13 Super Specific Signs That Your Childhood Was Extremely Damaging. And I went over this topic a few times, but for some reason this one is calling to me today, so let's check it out together.
Hey, hi everyone. I want to talk about 13 super specific signs that your childhood may have been extremely damaging. My name is Jerry Wise. I've been working for over 45 years with people who grew up in narcissistic, toxic, and dysfunctional families, helping them finally get the family dysfunction out of them and become the true self they were never allowed to be. So, what are these specific signs that your childhood was extremely damaging? One thing is that you smile your way through hell. And I think what I mean by that is you just smile no matter how awful things are, whatever, no matter how you're treated, no matter what goes on, you keep the smile on and you always keep up the stiff upper lip and never make anybody uncomfortable with who you are, how you feel. And so you smile your way through hell. Another sign of
Okay, let's go through the points that he mentioned. So he's saying about just continue smiling even if you're bad. I know exactly what he means. It's in my case, it's most of all just not trying to bother other people with my own problems. And I actually went through life with a big smile on my face because of that reason as well for a long time. And I guess it stopped during and post COVID, but I just couldn't have enough energy anymore just to keep this even fake smile up. But I know exactly what he's saying and where this is coming from, and let's keep listening.
growing up with a damaging childhood is serious feelings of isolation and loneliness. We have the isolation and loneliness because of what we have learned, what we have believed about ourselves, what we were programmed when we were growing up. And so that's why when we have the symptoms of isolation and loneliness, which I certainly did experience in a pretty severe way, I also realized I learned that. And that was a part of how I was to cope with myself and being and feeling isolated and lonely because of not having the support and affection and help that may have happened in a more functional family. Another sign that your childhood was extremely
So again, absolutely hit the hammer on the head. You basically learn to be isolated, to be by yourself. And I guess together with the first point of not trying to bother anybody, this also during COVID happened to a lot of people and still is. But it's weird how these things are working together, right? Whatever happened then during 2019 up until now. Anyways, find isolating myself to be the only way really going through the day currently, as other people would just be too much to handle for me. And I always have felt that way. I had friends where they would live together in like a apartment, share apartments together, multiple people, 3, 4, 5 people. I could never see myself doing that. Sometimes I wish I would, but thinking about it real quick, I would say it's not for me. Yeah.
Damaging is a lack of healthy and lasting relationships. If your relationships haven't lasted, if you don't have healthy relationships, probably there is damage that went on when you were growing up. And a lot of people come to me and say, I don't have friends. I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to get a relationship. I don't know how to have a husband or a wife, or I've had 2 bad marriages and it's never going to work out. I understand it can feel that way. It can seem that way. And I understand how painful that can be. However, there are ways in which we can unearth the problems that are underneath the isolation and loneliness and create a better environment for you and a much more open, possible forward motion with friends, romantic relationships, etc. And if we take a look back, we can do some expelling of that programming. We can do some healing of the trauma, which will help us to have different relationships today. Another sign that your childhood may have.
So interesting. He said some a few times. That means you're never gonna get rid of it. I mentioned this during my therapy and never really got to tackle it. But in terms of friendship, I guess again, same boat with like first and second point. Mostly isolated and lonely. Though there was phases when I would go out with friends and party, but that was it. So these waves of social, of being social, would always be accompanied with drugs and alcohol. And thinking back, that was really the only thing that ever kept my friendships together, and never really a shared interest, but just to party. So what is left after the party is over, the music is off, and people get sober is nothing. Loneliness. But in terms of romantic relationships, this is crazy how this fits, all of this fits so far. But in all of my life, I had one single relationship that went on for more than a month. And that one lasted for a year. And any other relationship with a woman would not last more than a month. So it was never serious, I guess you could say. And I know this to be stemming from my upbringing and childhood. And I hate my parents a lot for this. For this sole fact alone, I find myself thinking about it a lot, or found myself thinking about it a lot. Whenever it would come up or repeat, or I would repeat going through whatever it is and all the feelings. and I could just never get a grasp on it. Took a long time to realize.
Been extremely damaging is being startled by even the smallest noise. That's certainly a PTSD symptom. We're just startled by everything, and it's very difficult. I realize there are some people that have a heightened sense of hearing, senses, but I'm not really talking about those. I'm talking about those whom have become much more ready to be startled because of their childhood abuse, because of childhood intimidation, bullying, fear, uh, and being terrorized. And many children are terrorized growing up. And that's all legal these days, unfortunately, because we do protect parenting, which I understand. We do need to protect the relationship between a parent and child, but hopefully we will grow into some more mature understandings of what it means to protect in our
It's just the
society
beginning of
children
understanding.
from
It's
very
just the beginning.
unhealthy parents. Another sign that you grew up with a child.
So I don't in particularly have a fear or getting feared, or what's the term? I'm not getting scared by a sound or random sounds, but I know exactly what he means. And there was indeed a phase in my life where I would get startled by like by the doorbell. It sounds stupid, but that would raise flags for me, as in I have to do something. How do I describe this? It would induce alert and panic, just for the sole reason of me having to open the door and talk to strangers, maybe, probably. But that's a weird one. It wasn't too long ago, actually. It was definitely while I was living by myself, and I think I got over it. However, when whenever I hear the bell sound again, I'm thinking about that time. Not that I would get startled again or having some sort of flashback. It's just that I remember that there was something. But that's interesting. Let's keep listening.
Childhood that was extremely damaging is changing your behavior when someone enters the room. Your inner dialogue shifts, your mental state shifts, your behavior may shift. Someone enters the room and you shift. That may be a sign that you had damaging experiences growing up as a child. Another example of a specific.
Wait, is he gonna elaborate on this one? Because I find this very interesting. Changing your behavior. I think you can apply this to a bunch of stuff. I really want to know the connection between childhood trauma and this one. I I guess I can figure it out myself. The first thing that I would think of is just having your parent enter the room and then you have to behave. Something of that sort. Of course, you can expand in all sorts of angles. But that's an interesting one. For myself, I guess it does apply somewhat, because a new person is a new connection, a new start of a conversation again. And I guess you want to adjust just to have a good connection. That's an interesting one.
Sign that your childhood was extremely damaging is feeling guilt and shame in completely normal situations. And I remember that, like, even with bosses, which is kind of a professional relationship, kind of a normal societal relationship. And when the boss says, "Well, I wish I would have liked you to have seen you done better in the last 6 months. I think you've maybe made a dip in your productivity," and then you feel waves of shame and guilt. it's their job to bring that up. It's their job to ask you about that, and it would be their job to help explore that with you. But we feel, who have had damaging childhoods, we feel the shame and guilt that comes rushing in as a result of that criticism. Even the hint of possible criticism, we can have lots of reactivity to that. Another specific.
Yeah, it's a very good point. People just keep having the trauma of being berated, being talked down to, never did something wrong, and I definitely went through the same thing, and I totally understand what he means. And this example with the bosses is really a rough one because it's so true that so many bosses, at least I can anecdotally say, the ones that I worked for, always a bunch of assholes, always trying to make you feel bad so you would work better. How that works out, I'm not really sure how it's supposed to, but apparently that is how people think it has to work, at least here where I live. It's sad. It's very sad. And I guess it doesn't leave you. Your parents did it to you, and you will always remember it.
Sign that maybe your childhood was extremely damaging is you either overshare or share nothing at all. In other words, we live in extremes or the pendulum type of life.
Mm-hmm.
We overshare over here or we undershare over here. Often, if we've had a childhood that's been damaging, we overshare with people we shouldn't be oversharing with, and we undershare with people who we should be sharing with. We actually end up doing the opposite of those things
Absolutely.
because of our childhood programming and experience. Another sign that your childhood.
I mean, just look at me. I'm talking about all this stuff to an audience of full strangers. But this is therapeutic for me. Just talking it, just saying it, listening to it. Maybe some people comment on it. Reflection. It's good. And then in privacy to your closest friends, you don't share it because you don't want to bother them or you're scared of their reaction. I guess that's another reason why my friend circle is so small. But I do try and share as much as I can, and I know exactly there is people that I consider good friends and close in the circle, which I'm not talking to about these kind of things. But this pendulum is a real thing for sure. I really would like to hear a bit more of the connection in childhood and between this.
May
Let's
have
keep
been
listening.
extremely damaging is your friend circle is very small and you have no friends. Well, certainly, maybe you're not one to get along with people. Maybe you don't want to be around people. Okay, you can make that choice. That's fine. And there are more introverts versus extroverts. I understand that. But if you don't have any friends who really can't be in your life, then again, it may not be just your fault. It may not be you're a bad person or you're a person who can't have friends, or maybe you feel you're a person that's unworthy of having friends. But probably there's some childhood issues and trauma that are behind that. Another sign that your childhood may have been extreme.
I mean, what is there more to say, right? Just what we talked about. For a long time, I went through life thinking it was my fault. Once you realize it's not, the rage and anger, the hatred towards the people who should have cared about you when you were little is so immense. It is horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And you know they can never make it right because it's long gone. I don't know how much I should share about my parents. Maybe at some point I make a video.
Extremely damaging is having struggles with authority, either needing too much of it or rebelling against it. In other words,
Rebelling.
we don't have a healthy relationship with authority. It's usually an unhealthy relationship. We resent it, we hate it, we fight against it, or we comply, submit, and do not think when it comes to authority of others over us. And that can be a sign that our childhood had some damaging things going on there. Another specific kind of
Okay, don't get me wrong. I have no problem really with authority if I have a group and somebody wants to lead this group and I understand that he's capable of it. I'm gonna follow this person. I have no problem of like even going into some sort of hierarchy and going beneath them and just supporting them so they can support us. I find this is healthy and this is how it should work, especially because I myself, during all my life, I was always automatically put in a leader situation in these whenever something like this would come up. Naturally, just without me trying to do something or being aware of this happening now. And then therefore I would also be glad people just listening. However, just mindlessly obeying is absolutely not for me. Any man-made rules that are set in stone is nothing for me. And it's an interesting thing that I'm never gonna kick, I guess. But again, I see the positives in having leadership and I guess obeying to leadership. Even though it feels uncomfortable for me saying the word obeying because it's such a submissive move from my perspective. I still find it to be a good thing in this particular case.
sign is seeing a parent-child relationship and wishing it was you.
Every time,
Fantasizing about, I wish I could have been like Chris's parents. I wish I could have had a family who treated me like that. I wish, or you see others, mother and child, in the grocery store, and you go, oh, that would have been so wonderful.
so many times.
You may have had a damaging childhood. Another specific sign.
Oh, this is rough. The moment you realize that nothing is forever and time is going by and your childhood is gone. The pain just becomes greater and greater. And whenever I would see something like this in a public, I would just melt. Rough.
That
This is
you
rough.
may have had a damaging childhood is becoming childlike around your parents. That we immediately go into regression when we're there. We go for Christmas dinner and we fall into our childhood roles. And you're expected to be the role that your family or parents have defined for you. And you may also feel very childlike when you're around them. And so that leads you to accept some of the inappropriate parenting they may want to do with you as an adult. Parenting ends at 18. I didn't say people stopped having parents at 18, but parenting ends. In other words, you're not going to put me in the corner. Certainly, parents can provide some wisdom, some experience, some advice, some support, some financial help. All those things are appropriate even after 18. But parenting is another matter. And if that's happening, then you probably had a damaging childhood. Another sign.
I can't relate to this at all. But also it's like a long time since I've been in a situation like this. But I couldn't identify myself with this one. Regressing into your childhood role, basically. Interesting.
That your childhood was extremely damaging is that you're struggling to understand who you really are, what you really think, how you really feel. The reason why that can be a sign is that if we don't have that sense of self,
No
then
identity.
probably we did not get a good beginning of being our own selves
Yeah,
growing
that's good.
up. And there may have been trauma, abuse, dysfunction, toxicity, narcissistic parents, could be any number of things that would have suppressed knowing who you really are, what you really think, what you really want, what are your preferences, all of those things.
All of
So
them.
we may want to look at maybe my childhood may have had some damaging things going on in that, and we may want to get some help for that. I would strongly recommend that if a number of these items you find yourself experiencing, I would get some coaching or some therapy. I would also recommend that you join the free training that I have, Build the True Self You Were Never Allowed to Have, that's mentioned down below. To help you begin on a journey of healthy self differentiation. Comment on this video. Thank you.
So, man, what a video. They just write your life on paper, put it in a video, and you see it for 10 minutes. Crazy. As I said, I was in therapy and I mentioned those things. I had 5 sittings, I think. And I'm getting the impression more and more that the therapist I was with was not the right one for me. But we both kinda came to an understanding that the world is just full of shit and I'm strong enough to handle it. But there is no resolve with my parents. There is no going back in time. None of that. It is what it is. And the worst thing is that you're actually getting punished day by day for what has become of you. Even though you might tell somebody, even though you might tell the person you love about your background, they will never truly understand. So your behavior is the one that is gonna last in their mind. And not how you got raised. It was not only a wrongdoing by my parents, I believe. It was a lot of teachers in my school as well. I remember very vividly how there would be fights at home, and I was being punished for it, even at school, by the teachers. Yes, it's my fault. So yeah, rough times, guys. But I've been looking into this for a long, long time. That's why I can talk about it like this. And if you do not understand yet who you are and why some things are the way they are, please look into it. Try to figure out who you are. Question yourself why you react the way you react to certain things. I keep you guys up to date. This was an interesting video for me. There's gonna be more of this coming out. This channel is starting to become a little insight on mental health as well. Gaming, fitness, and mental health. Which I have to say again, like I did yesterday on stream. Mental health is a very easy concept. Easy because it's real. Because you can almost hold it in your hands. It's like having a scar on your body outside, on your skin. But it's on the inside, on your mind. And you can have it since your childhood. And it could be a big wound that will never close. People can't see it because it's in your mind. But they get to know you and they might understand. And we are coming out of a generation, me for sure, where these things are not talked about or laughed at, pushed aside, ignored. This is a devastating problem, and that's not how it's supposed to be. It's getting better now, just because people are more connected. But trust me, there is corners on this planet where it's still the same old. We are the 1%. If you're looking this, if you're watching this, if you're looking at these things, we are 1%, guys. The big picture is unaware of it. Alright, that should be it for now. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching, guys.